Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan Moz, the editor and publisher of BikePortland. Thanks for watching this interview with Carmen Rubio, a current Portland City Commissioner and candidate for Portland Mayor. Commissioner Rubio, thanks for coming in. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy with your campaign and with your duties as a commissioner. Of course, we're here to talk about the record of tickets and infractions for parking meters that you've received since 2006. Before we start, I wanted to ask, is there anything in the record, in the public record at this point? I know there's been a couple articles in Bike Portland and in the one in the Oregonian. I wonder if there's anything you want to correct in the record so far.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Since that time, I've had a chance to look at the record a little bit closely and delve in. And from what I looked at, all of the tickets and fines, and of them, there are 90 original tickets. And so, of those 90, then 50 of them I paid, and then they went overtime. And then 20 of them were ticketed again that same day. So it's just to give some context on that.
So you're saying there are fewer than it's sort of made to seem in the reporting, at least in terms of original citations, and that there's a way that the court handles them that makes them look like multiple tickets.
Yes, and at that time, I was at I was at a nonprofit, and we were located in the Left Bank building. And I don't know if you know where that is, but all of my staff, that area was regularly heavily ticketed. And it's not, an excuse. It's just a fact, though, of being in that building, that it was a very heavily patrolled area by ticketing enforcement. And yeah, that's what it was.
So did I hear you right? Where when it comes to the parking meter tickets, you're saying there were 50 original? Is that what you said?
No, 90.
90. Sorry.
Yeah.
So 90 original ones, and that's going back to 2006, right?
Yes. And
So
and since 2016, I think I've only had 10 tickets. Um, and yeah.
is there something about that parking at the left bank that you feel contributed to that specifically, like how it was managed or what?
I think it was just. I think it hasn't been a secret that there were some heavily patrolled areas by parking enforcement, and I think that was definitely one. And at that time, my organization that I ran was growing, and I spent a lot of time there in the building. And yes, I let that time lapse often, or I didn't get there in time.
Okay. I just want to understand like the frame of mind to sort of know that those tickets were happening, and then getting the tickets. I understand if they just keep coming, but then if they weren't paid in a timely manner, like what was going on with that situation? Was that an organizational thing, or can you help me understand that?
No, that was more a personal thing. I think that, during that time, I went through, some tough times, and personally. And at that time, I was really focused on making sure that no matter what tough times I was experiencing in my family side, and I'm going to keep it at that, that I did everything utmost I could to. The priority for me was the organization and the work. Not only because the work was so critical and the mission is critical, but because there were so many staff and participants that were, participating in our services that depended on that. So that was really critical, and my focus, and I did not, and I let my personal responsibilities on that side get put off, and that was wrong, and I regret that.
So I appreciate that. So what did you think would happen, like with the unpaid tickets? Like, was the expectation that, and ultimately, I think some of them got led to suspended license. So, like, what did you think the outcome would be? And in the moment, I'm just curious why that understanding and self reflection wouldn't happen in the moment, right? Because everybody that's going to hear this and everybody that's read the story is like, well, I feel like I have to pay for my parking tickets. Why does Commissioner Mayoral candidate Rubio feel that she doesn't have to pay for them? And what did you think would happen ultimately?
Well, I'll say I didn't ever think I wasn't going to have to pay for them.
Okay.
I always knew that I was going to have to pay for them. Um, at that time, I just made the bad choice to prioritize solely to the exclusion of my this time that it would take to go and deal with that immediately. I chose to prioritize my work responsibilities, and I now have done so much personal work and have learned about work life balance, and I have these skills now about like you need to take care of yourself first so that you can do this other stuff even more effectively. And so I learned those hard lessons, and I think that's reflective in how they really went down. So,
Yeah.
but yes, I paid all of them off, and and really I did that years ago, and so I never for one time just expected that I would not pay them. I knew it was going to come. I knew that I had to do this, and and that's really how that happened.
So can you help me understand what's your response to the expired tags stuff that's also in the record, which is a different issue? It's the registration tags on the license. It's a different issue, right? So is that would you give a same sort of response to that as the meter tickets?
I would say yes because that was around the time that that those things were happening. That it was growing years. That my focus was there, and I was working on that to the exclusion of other things happening.
So if I hear you right, I just want to be clear. You're saying that the your failure to pay for these infractions that were happening, these meter infractions and the expired tags, you're saying that in that time in your life, you were prioritizing your career, your and family related stuff. Because I want people to know. I mean, you were. It wasn't as if you couldn't afford to pay. You could. It seemed like you could afford to pay at least from like publicly available, salary records and that kind of thing. So you're just saying that you were focused on other things, and this wasn't something that was the top priority to get taken
Well,
care
I
of.
wouldn't say that I was focusing on my career. My career, my job was about providing, the structure and oversight of a system and staff that depended on paychecks and payroll, and those things were very important to me. I did not like we needed to keep things moving forward for participants and for the staff. So that to me that was more my responsibility. And then the other piece was that, again, there were times in my life that were really tough. And this was like squarely one of those really big times. And I think that for most women and anyone who provides or cares for family members when they're going through some rough patches, probably knows the various kinds of things that are hard that I'm referring to. Um, so there were other costs associated with that as well. So I'm going to leave it at that because that involves other people, and that is not my story to tell.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Um, when you were asked by the Street Trust in their endorsement process if there's anything they should know, why did you feel like you shouldn't mention this history of tickets and all this stuff?
If When I was asked if there was anything they should know,
Yeah, there was a line on their endorsement questionnaire that talked about is there anything else that we should know about you. Of course, it's a transportation advocacy
yeah,
group, so they do have a special interest in how streets are used and how people operate motor vehicles and that sort of thing. So, did you see that question and not want to share it at that time, or
no,
what? Why did you not?
no, I read that question about what my policy positions were. That was the frame in which I understood that question. Had I thought about it more personally, of course I would have shared that. I
Oh, I hear what you're saying. You thought of it as you thought of it in a policy lens, right? I
Yes,
hear what you're saying.
because we in a lot of the questionnaires, a lot of them say, "Is there anything else you want to add? Or is there anything else you want us to know?" So I think I was taking it in that frame. But yes, absolutely, I would have shared that. These are things that are mistakes in my life, and they also are things that I've learned from and I've paid dearly for. And you know, it was wrong, and I would. That's not how I am operating right now. This is something I learned about. And when I learned more about street trust and I learned more about all of the issues, I didn't come into this role, um, with expertise in a lot of things. So I'm learning more and I'm doing better in how I try to live. And I'm not perfect. I you know that's not something that I've ever professed to be. I'm human, and I made mistakes, and I'm taking accountability for. I took accountability years ago, and I'm taking accountability now.
So to people that are worried that this pass is some means that you can't responsibly manage, a safe transportation system or a safe city, what would you tell those people?
I would say that it was years ago now, but I also, I've successfully worked for people that believed in me who were elected. I successfully grew and ran a large organization with a large budget and a lot of staff that I was responsible for and participants that were that I was responsible for. So I've demonstrated that I am extremely responsible when it comes to and now as as a person where I am, but in terms of people who feel that way, I'm a big believer in restorative justice. Going back to my work with system impacted families and youth, I don't define people by their failings, and I hope that people don't define me by mine, and hopefully balance their perspective with the good that I've accomplished. And I also believe in a world in which people can run and win elected office without being perfect. But everyone has a right to their own opinion and will do so, do what they feel is casting their vote accordingly. And that's their right.
Is there something you can share that would help us understand that this trend of getting these infractions and parking or whatever they might be is over? Like, what changes have you made in terms of like the way you operate your vehicle and the way you approach the use of your car, that could convince us that these days are over and that it's sort of a new chapter?
Thank you for the question. I think that things that I'm very, very committed to is to let folks know that I've done a lot of introspection, not just over the course of my life, given all those years ago with those things, but really this past week and reflecting on safety issues that matter most in our community, and the fact that we're seeing far too many traffic fatalities. It's going to take a concerted effort and action and investment and actually backing it up with action. And so I'm really, really committed to it, even more so now. Really committed to walking the talk, and it's it's a very precious thing to be trusted and um, to be supported with this responsibility of an endorsement, or with the trust and the hope of people who are actively working on these things. And I take that very seriously and very deeply. And um, I plan to take serious action. Should I have the honor of being elected, I would make more bold pronouncements and commitments by making Safe Street funding a priority in the first 100 days of my administration. And, I want to lead my life personally and accountably, and just really focus on those things that have been neglected. And I have to say, learning about high crash corridors, um, the disaggregated data when you break down and you look at who's on the receiving end, whether they're pedestrians or cyclists or people rolling or riding transit. You know, they tend to be disproportionately lower income and communities of color, and so this is it hits right in the heart, and it's something that I'm going to double down on for sure.
And is part of that because is it accurate for me to think and say that because of your passing getting all these tickets, you understand how like the erosion of those norms can lead to a sense of lawlessness and a sense of lacking safety on our streets. I'm just wondering if you make that connection, because I do understand there are most all these are parking meter tickets. I think there's 6 or 7 that aren't. They're related to, I think there's only one speeding ticket in all that time, and the others just general parking in the wrong place. The way I look at it, there is a connection between an erosion of putting our car out there and not taking care of it responsibly
Mhm.
to the more serious problems that you mentioned, like on high crash quarters. And I just wonder if you share that sense that there's a connection between this. I mean, when you were on council, you voted to support a PBOT budget that included more parking enforcement
Yes,
officers
yes,
with our tax dollars
yes.
that that would be writing very the same infractions that are on your record. So
Yeah.
I would love to know from you, do you make that connection between something as seemingly innocent as a parking meter being overdue to more serious issues of safety on our streets and that sense of lawlessness and broken culture that we've been talking about?
Yeah, and I will tell you, Jonathan, I'm being just very transparent and vulnerable here that I did not make that connection so directly until more like in this role. I absolutely do in terms about the social contract we all have to uphold and are being responsible to the system. Absolutely, I understood that, but the very articulation of what you just said about the that it does have a connection to that sense of you need to be responsible and it is interconnected in a way that didn't crystallize for me until this job. So I would say yes, that is, very important and something that has gotten stronger. And I did vote for more enforcement because I do understand now the interconnection of how these fines and fees contribute back into the system and make things safer. I do think that we should think about how that disproportionately impacts low income people. And I was not low income, but I'm just saying also working with people that would come into Latino Network and they would be heavily ticketed too. But I do understand it, and it's a necessary part. It's part of consequences and it's part of accountability. So I get it in a very uh, reinforced and real and deep way now. That until I worked in this role, it wasn't. It's just crystallized about how much everything is interconnected with everything else.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I know we only have a couple more minutes here, but as I waited for this interview, I saw this new story come out in the Oregonian about you parking your car in a parking lot and brushed up against, actually made contact with someone else's car, and then you walked away, and then they gave all the video and text and everything to the Oregonian, and there's a whole story about that. That doesn't look great when you're talking about these issues of trust. This is certainly a big concern. I think a lot of people are going to look at that and just it's going to validate their initial concerns. I wonder if there's anything you want to say at this point about that incident.
Well, I will say that I parked my car. I felt the bump. I got outside. I looked. I did not see anything. I went into my appointment and I came back out and I had a note and I immediately called. I immediately texted, and we engaged from there. And so I of course, this week I would never, I did not leave a scene. I did not. Had I known, I would have done something more, but I did not see it. And but at the same time, I had to call her so that we could, if there's a note, and absolutely, I'm going to follow through on my responsibility. So that's what I'll say on that. I took accountability. I called right away, and I definitely exchanged information and was right away trying to resolve this and take responsibility if it was something that I did.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you want to say about this before we wrap this up?
No,
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Rubio, for taking the time to talk. I appreciate it.
thank you.